cow, my phone battery went from like 60% down to 2% just like that. I've been having issues with the battery in forever, as you guys know. I'm just pushing the limits out of this thing, huh? I guess in terms of things like dying and stuff like that, will the drone hobby and stuff in the UK start to die? Apparently this seems like almost like it came out of nowhere in some ways. Basically, there's mandatory drone registration now in the UK, so you'll have to do some kind of test and register your drones as well. I guess the general debate, like the rest of the world, is are things like this truly for safety or is it more for commercial reasons? That's usually the debate everywhere, including here. So I was just looking at the site briefly for some information. It says flying drones and model aircraft. You must have 2 registrations in place before you fly a drone or model aircraft that's 250 grams to 20 kilograms, and points anyone who will fly must pass a theory test to get a flyer ID. The person that's responsible for the drone or model aircraft must register to get an operator ID. For me, the concerning thing is they say drones and model aircraft, which makes me think there's basically no real effort to distinguish people. Let's just say someone flying it in a field for fun where there's no one there versus something like a 25 kilogram drone doing some kind of drone delivery or emergency work. So that's kind of bad in that sense. And for this test, who knows what this test is going to be like? I was wondering at first, is this going to be like the one we have here in Canada? It's so ridiculous. It doesn't even relate to a drone flyer in many ways. I mean, questions about passengers on an airplane, salt water, like what does that have to do with an actual drone pilot, so to speak? So in reading this here, it says registering yourself to use a drone or model aircraft. Prepare for the theory test. You must pass the theory test before you can get a flyer ID. The test is designed to check that anyone who flies a drone or model aircraft is able to fly safely and legally. So I briefly tried to look at the materials they had just to see again what it's like, and I guess they at least give you material to study for. I would assume this is what's actually in the test. Like this one here says, always keep your drone or model aircraft in direct sight and make sure you have a full view of the surrounding airspace. So basically point forms to give you pictures, like saying for example no binoculars, telephoto lens, electronic viewing equipment, and so forth. Normal glasses and contact lenses are fine. And overall it says there are 20 multiple choice questions and the pass mark is 16. You should allow at least 20 minutes to complete the test. You can take the test as many times as you like. I guess that is better than here, because here there is no official quote study guide. For the most part, it's just businesses and stuff capitalizing on the fact there isn't one, and they just regurgitate information saying, oh, check out this entire Canadian aviation regulations or whatever, just read the sections. There's no actual guides like this one here. So essentially, in my opinion, the process so far here didn't make things safer. It just created business opportunities for people to capitalize on this. They then list some scenarios when you would have to register the drone, who's responsible, and the cost. Like here it says, being responsible for drones. Anyone that owns or is responsible for a drone or model aircraft must register to get an operator ID. Some examples of a situation where you need an operator ID. You own a drone or model aircraft. You're the adult responsible for an under 18 who owns a drone or model aircraft. You're responsible for a drone or model aircraft that someone else is flying. What you will need: an email address that you can check during the application, a debit or credit card if you're registering for an operator ID. And it says here basically examples, the flyer ID and operator ID would be $9. If you just fly other people's, for example, drone and stuff, you just need the flyer ID. So I guess it's kind of like saying a driver's license and a car license. I guess that's kind of a way to think about it, just based on what I read here. And I guess to make people do this, they even say on their pages, it says, it is against the law to fly a drone, model aircraft without passing the theory test or registering. You can also be fined for breaking the law when flying. In most serious cases, you could be sent to prison. I assume the questions won't be as ridiculous here. Then again, I've never done the test, so someone else in the UK would have to chime in. It just says like the contents of it, what you would learn is fly safely and responsibly, where you can fly, making every flight safe, protecting people's privacy, and extra information, getting a flyer ID and operator ID before you fly, and then background, drones and model aircraft in the law. And so it's kind of interesting reading some of these articles. Like this one here says, UK drone pilots have 25 days to register with regulator. The mandatory requirement to register covers owners of drones or model aircraft weighing more than 250 grams. Owners of unregistered drones could then face the threat of a fine. At the same time, the CAA is starting a service in hopes it will reunite owners with their lost drones. A quarter of the owners have lost a drone at some point, CAA research suggests. Most lost drones go missing because of malfunctions in flight, the research indicates. This includes losing battery power, loss of signal, or technology failures. but a quarter of the cases involve pilots making mistakes. My first thought with that is, I don't know how many people are gonna buy into that, where that was the key reason to have this thing. And they basically just say about everything we just talked about, and there's basically $9 a year, that's what they say. And there will be some exemptions according to them. It says not all owners must register by 30th of November. Exemptions have been granted for members of several associations involved with flying model aircraft or other small remotely controlled aircraft such as drones. It was interesting reading how some organizations were really vocal against this. It says Simon Dale, chief executive of FPV UK, said it had opposed registration since it was announced. About 4,000 members of the FPV UK are regular drone flyers. Quote, registration will do nothing to improve safety or security because bad actors will not register their drones. Instead, he said, the regulations will put people off model and drone flying. And they have a quote him saying that Mr. Dale said FPV UK will continue to actively oppose registration. He added, hopefully it will be scrapped before long, just like the dog license. There was actually a license there to basically have dogs? That's kind of weird, isn't it? So is it too late for people over there in terms of getting this law changed in every way? Like it's pretty much set in stone? To a certain extent, you do need some kind of guideline and all that, so people don't fly into airports and all that. I mean, that's perfectly fine, but when you base things that don't seem like they're around safety and all that, I think that's where the issue comes in. Overall, I would agree, it does discourage people from trying it out, just with all these red tape and all that stuff. It makes me wonder if with that Mavic Mini release, people will go for stuff like that still, just to enable them to fly stuff without all this regulation that doesn't make sense when people use it in a perfectly safe way just for recreation and fun. And again, just in terms of the commercialization, like the example here, even there's a lot of schools here that actually conduct a flight test. They sell you like $100 to $200 course where ultimately when you read the thing, it's just here. Read the material that the flight reviewer has to read in order to pass the test. That's what you're paying us $100, $200 for. I was like, what? Like again, like that, from my experience, most of the material that people dump out there just for all this stuff is just regurgitated information and they're just making a profit out of it, which kind of sucks because this should be a lot easier for people flying it for fun in my opinion. So that's why it's good basically reading that part about the FPV organization saying they'll still be there to basically try to change things for the better, because for the most part here, just from what I've seen, there isn't many people or organizations that actually actively try to help in the situation and bring awareness of it. It's mostly people just trying to profit from it in some ways, just from my observation anyways. Alright, see you guys later.